All that I can say, and I'm sure nobody would really disagree with this, is that the US has fundamentally changed its approach to engaging the world. From the best of all worlds, you can end up as the most difficult of all worlds. The number of GCCs in this country is growing. And of course, when it comes to the AI era, I think where India is concerned, it's not just the scale of the data which would be generated, but in many ways the diversity of the data. I've gathered here today to discuss the other T word. And I may want you to reflect on the connection between the first T and the second T. But we also are gathered in a very changed landscape from what it was just a year ago. So I thought it might be useful to, as we begin the open proceedings of this 9th GTS, in a way to share with you an Indian view of the geotech landscape. How do we see the world? Why, in my view, Sambhavna, possibilities, is an appropriate theme for this year. And it is natural that when we speak about change and the T word, that we begin with the United States. Now, all that I can say, and I'm sure nobody would really disagree with this, is that the US has fundamentally changed its approach to engaging the world. And it has consequences across every domain. But the tech consequences, I believe, would be particularly profound. And it'll be profound not just because the US is the largest economy, the main driver in a way of global tech advancements, but also because it's very clear that tech has a big role in making America great again. So there is a connection between MAGA and tech, which perhaps was not so clear between 2016 and 2020. In our business, one milestone, one example of the profound changes in American policy has been Vice President Vance's speech to the Munich Security Conference. There was actually, to my mind, a very impactful speech before that as well, which perhaps didn't get the same degree of attention, which was to the AI Action Summit in Paris, which was just a few days before Munich. So the changes in the United States, which all of you are as familiar, if not more than me, I think is one big shift in the last year. But there's the other shift, and that's an evolution, you can say. It's something which appears, even if it is not, more more of an unfolding rather than dramatic events, and that is the advancement of China. So that has happened in respect, of course, on trade. What we saw in many ways as the trade story has also been the tech story. And it's had its dramatic moments. DeepSeek was one. But I would argue that the changes impelled by China are as consequential as the shifts in the American position. In fact, one is to some extent influenced by the other. If one were to turn our attention to Europe, I think again here the change in the last year has been very sharp. 5 years ago, I think Europe probably had the best geopolitical situation. It had worked out the ideal triangulation between the United States, Russia, and China. Today, every side of that triangle is under stress. So from, and perhaps there's a lesson in it, sometimes very intricate hedging. From the best of all worlds, you can end up as the most difficult of all worlds. But again, I want to stress here that there are very important tech aspects to Europe's predicament, and in fact to our own interaction with Europe. And this year, just a month ago, we had 21 European commissioners visiting us. I think if you correlate the sort of intensity today of India-EU relations, there is, I think, clearly sort of factoring in both of their predicament as well as of the way India looks at possibilities which have opened up after that. A word about East Asia as well. I think in many ways, Japan particularly, South Korea to some extent, have also sought through the tech world means of a geopolitical comeback. And the salience of Taiwan, of course, doesn't need to be even mentioned. Now, in all of this, where is India? And you had an opportunity in this visit. I hope your conversations in the last 2 days have enhanced it, and the coming 2 days even more so, to acquaint yourself and to debate and discuss what is happening in our part of the world. Some of it is better known, DPI, for example. Some of it is in the making. I mean, the priority now given after many decades to semiconductors is an example. I think the space advancements are very interesting, not just for what they have achieved, but the manner in which the space industry and the space ecosystem itself is changing. I would say that to some degree for drones as well. The startup culture is deepening. The number of GCCs in this country is growing. And of course, when it comes to the AI era, I think where India is concerned, it's not just the scale of the data which would be generated, but in many ways the diversity of the data which would make it somewhat unique. So that's the way I would say geographically the landscape looks. A few words about some issues dealing with the current tech policy challenges we look at. Again, I think we are stating the obvious today when we say that tech has made trade much more national security sensitive. So we had almost an autonomous discussion about reliable and resilient supply chains, and one about trusted and transparent digital existence. And I think today the two have really fused together, and that fusion will become deeper. And it will make the traditional model of partnerships much more difficult to take forward. So the orthodox ideas that, we hedge on everybody and get the best out of everything is not going to be that easy. It's a point I made last year as well, and I think events have only shown that there's a even greater complexity on that. The other point I would make is the revival of interest, certainly, hopefully of industry as well, on the nuclear side. And the connection, again, which all of you are familiar, between the AI growth and the interest in nuclear energy. Talent, the availability and flow of talent, I think in many ways will be the Achilles heel for industries in many countries. And certainly for us in the foreign policy side, that has acquired today much greater salience. Many of our discussions with international partners today revolve around, the smooth flow of talent, just as they do about making GCCs easier to function in this country. Natural resources is the other increasingly important factor. I think many choices and priorities are going to be made in terms of natural resources directly relevant to this age and time. So, I would just end with that note, that adage about data being the new oil. I think today we are grappling with who are the consumers, what will be the mode of consumption, where are the refineries for that new oil, and finally, what is going to be the trade in that particular commodity. And I'm really pleased that the organizers of GTS have chosen to take an optimistic view of this churn which is underway. This was completely their decision, but I do want to say that it reflects in many ways the mood of the country and certainly the outlook.